We're all made of layers, the ones we show the world and the ones we keep just for ourselves. On the Layers of Us podcast, we peel back those layers through honest conversations about identity, growth, and the stories that shape us. From queer and BIPOC voices to anyone with a layered story to tell, this is where we explore where we've been, what we've carried, and who we're becoming, one story at a time. I'm your host, Amanda Wan, and this is The Layers of Us. Hey everyone, what's up and welcome back to the podcast. Today we have another guest with us and we have Renee. So hi Renee.
Hi Amanda.
Thanks so much for coming on. Do you want to start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, who you are? This podcast is all about like identity and representation. So anything about your identity that you'd like to share?
Sure. So my name is Renée Yoxon. I'm a non-binary person from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. My pronouns are they, them. You're from Montreal, Quebec, Canada as well? Oh my God. We should be doing this in person.
No. Part 2 in person.
Oh my God. That is so funny. Small world.
Yeah.
And for work, I'm a gender-affirming voice teacher.
Yeah, I love that. That's what I'm so excited to dive into. But before I do that, can you share a little bit about your like own journey with your voice, both as a musician and as a queer, non-binary, and disabled person?
It's a big question. How much time you got?
All the time.
Oh, good. Yeah. So I wasn't always a gender affirming voice teacher. Before doing this job, I was a performing artist and a singing teacher. And it's complicated, I guess, because I had big dreams about becoming like a touring artist. Of course, since you're in Canada, you know the challenges of being a touring artist in Canada. Cities are really far away from each other. Visas are hard to get. It's kind of a physical job, right? You have to like basically sleep in vans to do that in this country. And it was just not available to me as a disabled person. Like my chronic pain got worse and worse. And so I kind of went away from the idea of performing live and started doing more online content creation and teaching, frankly. So yeah, like being a disabled person really shifted the course of my life as an artist. And now I don't actually do any performing arts. Like I still play piano and I still sing, but now it's just for myself. I do have 4 albums out, but it's like just not on my radar anymore. Now I get so much joy from focusing on teaching gender affirming voice that I don't feel like anything is missing from my life. So that's like one side of the question. And then the other side was about like my identity as a non-binary person and my voice. And that's a little more, I don't really have like a succinct story for that one. Like I definitely have like a memory of being at Jazzworks Jazz Camp, and kind of coming out as bi at the time. I must have been 15 years old, you know, and we were singing songs for a master class and they were like, come on, Renee, like dig deep, like think about the message of the song and emote it. And I just remember like bursting into tears in the middle of this master class. And the teacher was like, maybe emote a little less actually. But I was going through so much like identity shifting at the time. I didn't know who I was. Was I gay? Was I straight? Gender wasn't even yet on the horizon. So I had already like gone through a lot of vocal identity changes. By the time I started coming out as non-binary, I was just like, I don't know, like voice is a reflection of who you are and where you are in your life and what you've done to stay safe and who raised you and where you've lived. And I no longer think of my voice as a static object. It's always changing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And because you kind of like describe your voice as a way of like coming home. What does that process kind of feel like? Because I never really thought of it in this way. And even when I was like looking at your page and stuff, like I didn't know so many of these terms or things existed because to me, like I just like wasn't aware of it. And like it's so interesting to me that like now that I'm thinking about it, like voice is such a big thing. Like even for myself, when I like edit my podcast or like edit anything, like sometimes I'm like, oh, like my voice sounds like that. Like that's me type of thing. So like for you, what do you like, how does like coming home to your voice, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, well, I think that people, like you're saying, like don't realize that the voice is something that not only reflects who they are and what they've been through and who raised them and all those things, but also is something they can choose to alter. Like we think about, I'm like looking at your nails and they're so beautiful. And you made that choice to like have these beautiful nails, and you made the choice to like get the glasses you have and the hair you have. And we know intrinsically that we can make choices about our physical appearance, right? And we also know that we can make choices about what we do with our bodies. We can take up running, we can take up sewing, we can learn the trombone, we can do whatever we want. But for some reason, there's like this gap in understanding that you can also simply modify the way you speak. And it's not a gimmick, it's not a character voice, it's not fake. It's simply a choice that you did with your adult bodily autonomy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's as valid as getting a nice set of nails or getting a new pair of glasses.
Yeah. And you've been like teaching since 2010. What kind of inspired you to become a voice teacher?
That is a really good question. I I feel like I've always been drawn to teaching because I feel like I don't know. This is going to sound silly, maybe conceited to say, but I'm good at teaching. Like I take a lot of pride and a lot of joy in breaking down complex ideas into simple building blocks that people can understand. And when I see the like light of understanding in someone's eyes, nothing brings me more joy in this world than
Teaching
helping
is a
somebody
skill,
to get to a
honestly.
concept. Yes, it's totally a skill. I think it's underappreciated, frankly.
Yeah.
Not just obviously the way I teach, but like teachers
Yeah.
teaching
Yeah.
children and all kinds of teaching is underappreciated. Um, so that's how I started teaching voice. When you're a musician, like teaching is sort of one of the options presented to you as like an
Mhm.
alternative to your performing arts career. So I started teaching because I had done some singing. I think I started teaching when I was like maybe 19 or 20. And when I was 21, it became like a really significant part of my life. But when I started teaching, I realized, oh, actually, this is what I like. Like the performing arts is the side hustle.
Yeah.
The teaching is my thing that I enjoy.
Yeah. And how did you kind of dive into that?
I just started and learned on the fly and kept taking lessons. And I think that I was an effective singing teacher because I was still a performing artist and I still had my own practice and I was still taking
Mhm.
lessons. I like started teaching in like I would say 2011 was like the highest year of teaching when I first started. And then it wasn't until 2014 that I went to music school. So I got a degree in physics and then I became a performing artist right out of that. And then after that I went back to school. And so I was always learning, like I'm a lifelong learner. And then after that I got a master's in songwriting and I was still taking lessons and still learning. So when I would teach my students, I would approach it not like I knew everything, because I don't
Yeah.
think it's the job of a teacher to like say like this is how it's done, but to
Yeah.
create a learning space for your students and to create an environment in which they can flourish and discover things on their own.
Yeah. And are all your students like, is it in person, virtual, a mix?
Well, so now I don't teach singing at all. Now I only teach gender affirming voice, but I actually don't teach privately really at all. I have the like okay, it's kind of complicated, but basically now I have 3 online courses that people take. So I have mindful voice feminization, masculinize your voice without testosterone, and mix and match design your non-binary voice. And students can take that and then they watch the videos on their own,
Yeah.
and I have like a once a month office hour where people come as a group and they ask me questions, and then people who have completed those courses have the option to take private lessons with me. And some have, but rarely, because I think most people are getting what they need from the courses,
Yeah.
or they're looking for a less expensive voice teacher because my private lessons are like a premium cost. They obviously have to cost more than the courses, but that's
Yeah.
good. Like that's what I want. I only want the people who really have like edge cases or who aren't getting like precisely what they need to come and see me for private
Yeah.
lessons, because the 101 material is learnable for a lot of people via an online course.
Hmm. And working with people, especially with like gender affirming voice, what's something that you've realized that most people kind of misunderstand about their own voices?
Well, there's a lot of misconceptions in gender affirming voice, specifically around like what qualities are the most important. So I think people who have not studied it will come in thinking they have to sound higher or lower. So if they want a more feminine voice, they think I have to sound higher to get a more feminine voice, or I have to sound lower to get a more masculine voice. But pitch is a quality that can affect the gendered uh, aspects of your voice, but it's the gendered perception of your voice. But resonance, so the vocal space, the color of the pitch is more important than pitch. So for instance, if I take a single pitch, ah, it can sound like this. oh, or like this, ah, and it's the same pitch, but the resonance is different. So one is quite
Yeah.
dark and one is quite bright. And so people get a lot more juice changing the gendered perception of their voice by modifying resonance instead of pitch. That's like a big technical
Yeah.
misunderstanding.
Okay, that's interesting. And for trans and queer folks, like even from your personal experience or from what you've seen with other clients or just other people in general, why is voice such like a powerful part of identity?
Well, I think voice is a powerful part of identity because it's something that you can modify without permission. You don't need a doctor to tell you it's okay to do this. You don't need to
Yeah.
even be out, frankly. You can be, even if you're just thinking about, maybe I'm gender nonconforming or maybe I'm trans, you can experiment with aspects of your gender. Obviously some people can want to grow their hair out or they experiment with
Mhm.
makeup or nails or clothes, but people don't realize that voice can be like a very stealthy way to just play with your gender. You can just do it in the privacy of your home and there's no evidence and it's completely
Yeah.
private. You can do it in your car. You know what I mean? Like it's one of these, it's like a rich barrier free zone for gender exploration and bodily autonomy.
And for yourself, diving into like your experience with your own voice and being a non-binary person, how did you kind of discover that part of you, and then how did you take that and then start putting your own voice into it? If that makes
So
sense.
yeah, it does make sense. It's funny, like I would not say that I have had to modify my speaking voice to align with my gender in the way that my students have. And that might sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. But when I was really singing, um, I would lose my voice constantly. And one of the reasons was the way that I was using my speaking voice. So I had to go through a speech voice alteration for like a medical purpose, not
Mhm.
with a speech language pathologist or a doctor. I actually went through this with a singing teacher, and she showed me how to speak with less pressure and to raise my pitch a little bit. And essentially, I did what all of my feminization students do in order to get a voice that was less damaging for my like long-term vocal health.
Yeah.
So I think I remember like what it was like to have to relearn how to speak and the habit forming process and what I'm like, are we allowed to swear on this podcast? Is
Yeah.
this a swear free? We are. Okay. What a mind fuck changing your voice is. So that's like what I bring to this conversation. And then I did have to like then once I had accomplished that, modify it to match my own gender,
Mhm.
but not. It was like a little bit more of an unconscious process than what I expect my students are going through right now. So everybody has their own journey when it comes to their voice. There's not like one way of doing things and no one length of time. And your voice is constantly changing as you age and with injury or illness or disability, it's changing as well. So it never stops.
No, it literally doesn't. I was watching some of my old YouTube videos the other day, and they were like from 3, 4 years ago. And like to me, like I thought my voice would sound the same. And then I was listening to it and I was like, whoa, like I didn't even realize that I sound so different now, which is like cool because again, like I maybe like this is me like not being educated enough in voice and stuff, but like I thought only only through puberty is when voices change. But I was like, whoa,
Mm.
like I'm 27 now and my voice at 23, 24 was so different than it is now and it's so cool. And I'm like, oh, like I wonder what my voice would sound like in like 4 more years now.
It's the changes are dramatic and your voice. I mean, maybe this is more obvious in jazz than in other genres, but like a lot of jazz singers recorded well into their later years. So you can listen to a recording of Carmen McRae from like the 60s, and you can also listen to a recording from Carmen McRae from the 80s, and you can hear like just what a difference age makes to the voice. I loved it. Like I remember being young and being like, whoa, these old women sound amazing. So I've always been attracted to that kind of thing. And now I'm 37, and I did a video like maybe a year ago where I listened back to a recording I made when I was, I want to say 21, and like it's two different people. It's really
Yeah.
two different people. Like almost how many years is that? Like 15 years? It's ridiculous how it
Yeah, no, it's
changes.
so cool. Yeah. And you've spoken about like the difference between your work and that of like a speech language pathologist. Can you kind of break down how your approach is different?
Yeah. So I want to say that it doesn't have to be different. There are lots of SLPs in the field who are trans themselves, who are very
Mhm.
trans aware. I've met a lot of SLPs just in the last year that I can see your dog barking in the mirror and so cute.
Yeah, he just heard someone outside.
Oh my God, so adorable. Anyway, so yeah, SLPs are, I'm not want to say there's not like any animosity between speech language
Yeah.
pathologists and trans voice teachers. Like we're on the same team. The difference is really like the context and the tools that we have. So a speech language pathologist works within the medical industry. So if you have access to insurance that can cover speech language pathology, and you know one who is trans affirming and or has an expansive idea of gender and who is not going to have like regressive binarist ideas around gender, then go for it. Like go see that person, because as a teacher, I can't get your sessions covered by insurance, right?
Mhm.
And then also, if you're a person with a pathology of some kind, so you have like, let's say, GERD, like reflux problems or constant throat clearing issues or dysphonia, something like that, a speech language pathologist will be able to help you maybe with the gender affirming part and then also with the pathology part. And they have access to things like imaging, so they can put a camera down there and see what's happening, stuff like that. That's all stuff that they can do that I can't do.
Mhm.
However, I have a music background. So there's lots of speech language pathologists who are not voice specialized and who don't know what it's like to modify the voice the way that a singing teacher does, right? So we have better techniques around, maybe better. I don't want to say better. We have different techniques around
Yeah.
practice and like musical techniques, so I can like play chords for you and then you can do an exercise with music that helps some people. My approach might also be more exploratory or more expansive, since I don't have a time limit, right? Like some
Yeah.
SLPs they have 6 sessions with you and that's it, but you can see me for years if you want to, and we can keep exploring. So it's really just about like what your needs are, what your comfort level is. And if you have the money and don't want to wait, you can go see a trans voice teacher, or you could see a private speech language pathologist, right?
Yeah.
And I will also add, there's also like a third category, which is people who have done this work and are peer mentoring. So we would call them like a non-traditional coach. They don't have a music background or a medical background, and they're still doing this teaching. And that's fine too. There's like so many paths through this practice, and one of them is not better than the other. We just
Mhm.
have different approaches, and it's
Yeah.
about you and your comfort level.
Yeah. And if someone's listening to this right now and they want to kind of start working on their voice or like gender affirming voice and all these things, but they're a little bit overwhelmed, what would you tell them? Like, how would you tell them to just like start and like how to feel comfortable with it?
Yeah, it kind of depends on the person, but let's just say it was a person who had never had a music or voice practice before. So somebody who's doesn't know anything about voice or learning an instrument or anything like that. I would say just start by warming up your voice every day. And I have a free like warm up module that they can download on my website. If you just start by like doing gentle voice stretches, you will develop like a relationship to your voice, more vocal flexibility, and it has nothing to do with gender because you
Hmm.
really need that as a foundational element before you can
Yeah.
do the actual gender affirming exercises. And if you just start with the exercises and you don't have this relationship with your voice, you could be fine. There's lots of people who've done that, I'm sure. Um, but it could create like these roadblocks where it's like, oh, I'm not performing my gender adequately. I would rather people like just start by warming up every day or like every other day, and
Hmm.
that way you're building this muscle without having it have anything to do with your gender or how
Yeah.
well you're performing it or not performing it. You know what I mean? That's my always my number one suggestion for people just starting out.
Yeah. And what's your approach for promoting yourself online with Instagram, for example? Because that's how I found you. Yeah. How did you kind of come up with the ideas for like your videos? How do you kind of create a community?
It's like three separate questions. Which one do you want to know first?
Eh, let's start with how you come up with your ideas, and then we'll go into the community aspect.
Sure. So I started on TikTok actually.
Okay.
Well, okay. I was a musician and a content creator before I switched to being a gender
Mhm.
affirming voice content creator. So I had some experience with online marketing, having released multiple albums and having had multiple projects and things like that. So I knew sort of what it was like to make content, you could
Yeah.
say. But I really wasn't into the short form video of it all until 2021, when I made the decision consciously, okay, I'm going to be a gender affirming voice teacher. Like my studio had sort of started to switch that way naturally over time, and I thought, well, if this is what I do now, I should get on TikTok. That's where the young trans people are. And they were there. We got so many followers in such a short time. And I just like made my first video about like something I had observed in my practice, right? Nothing groundbreaking, but it resonated with a lot of
Yeah.
people. And we did that for a few years, and the algorithm tides sort of changed against LGBT creators. So we've sort of been roadblocked on TikTok. And it was a fine while it lasted for like building a following and getting noticed, but it wasn't good for building community, which is what you're asking about also. And so we decided to switch to YouTube this January, and we've been doing weekly videos on YouTube since January 2025. And that's been amazing. Such a success, so much more like tangible growth
Mhm.
over there because we're able to see the same people. People are more likely to move to the newsletter through YouTube. And then they're in like my little ecosystem. They get my weekly newsletters. I tell them about the weekly videos, etc. So now the videos on Instagram and also TikTok are simply clips from those YouTube videos, right? That's where the short form content is coming from. Now, if the question is, how do we come up with our ideas for long form content? I don't know. I don't remember. How do we do this? I don't know. I think that I like to think about the questions I get asked all the time, and I try and make answers to those questions. Like my goal is to provide really high value on YouTube, because I know that not everyone can afford to take the courses, but if there are people who can get exactly what they need from my YouTube and are helped through just that, I love that.
Yeah.
So we think about the questions we get regularly. We sometimes think about ideas from TikTok that we were not able to adequately explain because they were more nuanced, and TikTok was not really the platform for that. And so we take those ideas and we expand them for YouTube. And now we have like hundreds of TikToks to go back on and look over. And recently we've started also putting in interviews into the channel, because I really think it's important to uplift the voices of other creators, especially if they're
Yeah.
trans, especially if they're of color, especially if they're trans women.
Mhm.
And so more and more and those are my worst performing videos, I will say. Can people start watching the interviews? Because they're so amazing.
I love interviews. I mean, obviously, considering I have a whole podcast around interviews, but I think it's so fun for me, and I feel like I love listening to interviews because there's sometimes like creators that I follow that I'm like, I would never know who this other person is without listening to this, and then I end up following them, and it's just like
Exactly.
so fun. It's such a fun conversation to listen to.
Yes, and the interviews on my channel are so informative. The people I bring on, there's people in my networks are just geniuses about trans rights, about
Mhm.
gender affirming voice. We have one interview with Tallulah Breslin, who's a non-binary SLP in Texas, who talks all about pitch floor raising surgeries, or voice feminization surgeries. And it is so amazing. I learned tons of things that I did not know from that video, because surgeries are not my specialty.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm always trying to find like the answers to the questions my students are asking, and then trying to also get my questions answered on my
Yeah.
YouTube channel. That's basically how I find ideas for content. But I am always brainstorming, coming up with new ideas constantly.
Yeah. No, I love that. And what would you say is one simple exercise or mindset shift that someone listening right now can try today to kind of start building a better relationship with their own voice?
Okay. I have both an exercise and a mindset shift, if that's okay.
Yes.
I'm not sure when this interview is going to come out, but tomorrow I'm going to release a video called I Can't Voice Train. Just try this exercise or something like that. And it's called the
I'll link
Key
it.
O exercise. Please link it below. If people want to check that out, it's like my most popular exercise. It's been my most viral TikTok. I don't think I want to explain it all here. I think I want people to go check out that
Yes, that
video.
works.
The Key O exercise. It works for, I would say, 95% of people who try it out. And then the mindset shift that I will give you is that in voice, people often are trying hard to do things. And I guess that's true of all things. It's like, you want to be a better runner, you run real hard. You want to be a better sewist, you sew real hard. But unfortunately, sometimes the stories we tell ourselves become true. And if we
Yeah.
believe something is hard, then it feels hard to do. And in the voice, it has the, maybe, if I'm not, are you a singer, Amanda?
Oh no.
No? Okay, just checking. Because singers know this. It's like the harder you try with singing, the worse the outcome is usually. So you have to constantly be working less hard to get a better outcome. And so the mindset shift I always tell my students when I see someone like really giving it to do well, which is, I mean, they obviously want to do well, they're trying hard. But I ask them, what if it were easy? How would you approach this exercise if you knew that this exercise were easy? And you just see their body relax, you see their face relax. Suddenly, their wind can move freely and they get way more bang for their buck in terms of their exercise. So, if ever you're struggling with a vocal exercise, listener, just ask yourself, what if it were easy? And then try again.
Yeah. I love that. Love that advice. I think that can go for like anything, even if people aren't like working on their voice or anything and just listening for fun. I think that can like really resonate with everyone in whatever they're doing.
Totally.
My last question for you is, since the podcast is called The Layers of Us, what layer would you like to pull back and learn more about yourself in the upcoming year, whether it do with your voice or something in your personal life or literally anything? What layer do you want to pull back?
Yeah. So I was reading this question before the interview and I was like, I don't know. It's so personal. But I think I'm thinking ahead to like what the next 12 months is going to look like. And I'm currently in the process of writing a book. And I'm
Okay.
also, yeah, and I'm also working on speaking more. And I'm finding that these things are so challenging to me because I'm not good at being bad at something and just like grinding away and practicing and working something till it gets better. Like I've been a subject matter expert in gender affirming voice and a teacher for so long that I'm just used to things being easy. Like I hear a student and I can just tell, I just know what to tell people with their voice, what to do. But when it comes to confronting my weaknesses and actually working really hard to improve those, that I'm not good at that anymore. So that is the layer I'd like to peel back in the next year is not being afraid to have people see me trying.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like important to see other people trying too, because sometimes we just think like, oh, these people have like everything together, they know everything, but like they don't. And I think
Nope.
that's like important to acknowledge and also like show people.
Totally. 100%.
Well, that's all I have for you today. So thank you so much again for coming on and sharing all this with us. Before you leave, do you want to shout out any of your socials, where people can find you, where they can work with you? I'll leave everything in the show notes below as well.
Thank you. I am at Renée Yoxon on all the things. So TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads. I don't know, probably LinkedIn. And then people can find me at my website, which is reneeyoxon.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again.
Thank you for having me, Amanda.